fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of Versus Stars podcast. This is the first episode of season 4. How are my loyal listeners? Thank you for your continued support. It's an amazing episode because Phillip Kennedy Johnson returns to the mothership to discuss the Incredible Hulk and Hellhunters from Marvel Comics. Now come aboard as we go traversing the stars. Hi, Mr. Johnson. Thank you for coming back to the Versus Stars podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me back, Jeff.
It's totally my pleasure. I'm a huge fan of yours, and like I said, I've been loving. I loved what you were doing with John Stewart. I've loved what you're doing with Incredible Hulk. So it's actually a big deal for me to have you back on the show.
Oh, well, it's super kind of you to say.
Thank you. So before we jump into Hell Hunters, which I can't wait to talk about, I want to talk first about the Incredible Hulk, which is, like I said, is a phenomenal series. And I will say, I've never monthly bought Hulk until you started working on it, and
Oh,
I
man.
find it
Thanks.
absolutely stunning what you're doing with it.
I really appreciate you saying that. It's funny. I was actually not a I was not the guy who bought every copy of Hulk myself.
Yeah,
Like I've got my runs that I think are great that I go back and reread, but I'm not the guy who has to read every single Hulk book. So when they asked me to do the book, I don't know, it was interesting, man. Like I had to kind of figure out my own take because the most recent run, I was a huge Planet Hulk fan.
mm,
I thought that run was terrific. Immortal Hulk was obviously amazing. Like that's not a hot take, everyone knows that. But yeah, the hard thing about taking that gig was like, how do I not just copy Al the whole time? Because I wanted more Immortal so bad, especially that early run where it was like at the very beginning, it was almost like a different, like a story. There was an umbrella kind of story happening, but there was
yeah.
also like each individual issue was kind of its own thing, and that was dope as hell. I almost wanted that I almost kind of wanted that anthology style thing to continue.
I think my issue with buying the Hulk on a monthly, I did buy every so issue. It's kind of funny. I do have a few issues of Mortal Hulk. I do have a few issues of Planet Hulk. I had a few issues. I think when Liam Sharp was the artist behind it, and I can't remember who was the writer, but Liam Sharp was the artist. I think what always bothered me on the Hulk was that I kind of felt the character had a two dimensional quality where he kind of just felt like he was angry. He bumped into some monster or some big guy. He fought the big guy, and then he walked away. He got to the next. But I was like, okay, well, there's not a whole lot going on. But then with your storyline, you've given it such so many dimensions to it and layers to it. You've given him also a history. I mean, you have a Hulk from I think 3,000 years ago, and you introduced the concept. So I kind of really feel like you've made him feel like a very tangible world and a world that is uniquely the Hulk.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I do love my world building. I please forgive me. I don't mean to correct you on a thing, but I also don't want a couple of I don't want creators to think I'm stealing their work. There was a towards the very end, maybe even the very last issue of Immortal Hulk. My friend Alex Pocknadell wrote a one shot called Time of Monsters,
Mm.
and that introduced the ancient Hulk, who was named let's see, Tammuz was the name of the human who became Hulk then. And but it was implied very heavily that version of Hulk is Enkidu from the Epic of Gilgamesh. And that's so the design that we see of Hulk with the horns and all the almost like the Doomsday-ish bony protrusions and all that, that was actually established at the very end of Immortal. So I brought back a character that Al Ewing and Alex Pocknadell and Juan Ferreira introduced there. So I cannot take credit for that character, sadly. But as soon as I read it, I was like, man, I would love to see more of this character. It shows the origin that the Immortal Hulk issue shows the origin of the Enkidu version of Hulk. And man, I wanted to see more of that so bad, which is why in issue 1 we see that Hulk corpse in the tomb with the head missing and all that. That's that same Hulk that you saw from the Immortal issue.
Well, I think the interesting is once you introduce the idea of the ancient Hulk, it definitely changes the idea of what the Hulk was. For all time, it was Bruce Banner, yes, with the gamma rays, and somehow because of eventually it became later on, the abuse and things of that nature. But I think before it was just his anger. This Hulk kind of springs down. The Hulk is Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner has always been the Hulk. With the idea of the ancient Hulk, you have the idea that the Hulk is somehow an entity attached to Banner, not literally from Banner.
Yeah, it's like Gamma is like, man, I don't want to, what can I say without spoiling everything? I probably shouldn't get into this, but it's that's how Eldest sees it. Eldest calls him the fractured sun, and she regards him as the same thing that she fought 3,000 years ago, 3,600 years ago, whatever it was. Um, but that Enkidu is the gamma expression of Tammuz, that human. And just the way that the Incredible Hulk that we know is the expression of Banner, and the way that the one below all is the expression of is the gamma expression of the one above all. Like there's like a Hulk version of these characters. And there's all these other gamma characters too. So Hulk is still Hulk, but gamma is like this dark ingredient that changes things. And that is something we're going to be getting into a lot, like what gamma is and how it ties into the mythology that we're exploring right now. I think you'll dig it.
Now,
As you say, it can't just be smashing toys together in the bathtub. There has to be like a story, there has to be like a point to it,
right.
something we're trying to say underneath everything. And I did think that Immortal Hulk was just such a beautifully done piece. I really wanted to make sure that I didn't want to just burn it and start over. I want to make sure that whatever we do also ties into that and develops the mythology additively rather than destructively.
Now, when you have the ancient Hulk, and I know once again we're going to Hellhunters where we have different versions of Ghost Rider, it implies that there may be further different versions of the Hulk that have existed because there was an ancient Hulk from 3000, so there's a modern Hulk. Does that then suggest there's been other Hulks along the way, and thus the Hulk is more elemental than psychological?
Um, well, again, I don't want to get into, I don't want to spoil it, but we do know other characters from recent mythology. I'm calling mythology, Phil, like recent, Marvel lore, like Amadeus Cho and She-Hulk and Doc Samson and the Abomination. Like there are other, creatures that have come along. So presumably there have been other things too. Now, most of those characters were born out of what happened with Bruce Banner. But I do think that, like, if you go back and read that Time of Monsters thing, that whole thing started with basically a meteorite, like a gamma meteorite,
Hmm.
like a drop of blood from the heavens that changed everything, like a green eye is what they called it. So to suggest that there have been no other expressions of gamma from then till now, I think would be a little naive.
So to poke at that just a little bit, we also have a lot of characters who have been around for a long time. Thor, versions of Ghost Rider, versions of Hercules. There's a suggestion then that these characters would have been around when there has been these other Hulks roaming around since the last several on and off
Well,
since.
to be clear, I'm not confirming that that's the case.
Okay,
I'm not saying there have been other Hulks, but yes, in theory, if there have been other Hulks between then and now, there are other characters in the Marvel universe that would have seen that.
okay. I just want to make sure that that floats up a little bit.
Yeah. Plus, there's also Gamma. Also, Earth also does not have the market cornered on Gamma either. Like that can gamma radiation in theory could exist anywhere. So there could be other stuff out in the universe as well. The mythology that we've introduced with Eldest and the Mother of Horrors is all inherently Earth based. So like Eldest regards Earth as the Mother of Horrors realm. Her origins are very much tied up with the origins of Earth. Actually, the origins of Marvel's origins of Earth. Like if you go back and read old Silver Surfer and Thor issues, it gets into the elder gods, things like Gaia and Set, and like all these other beasties, like the demiurge and the demigorge and all that stuff. Like this, the Mother of Horrors origin ties in with all of that stuff.
So the Mother of Horrors is a
Like the
natural
Gamma could have. Sorry, what?
Mother of Horrors is a natural aspect then of the Earth, from its origins.
Kinda. Like
Okay,
if you go back and read some of the back matter in issues 2 and 3, or at the end of issue 3, I guess. Like there are those remembrances of Eldest that we publish at the end of each issue,
yeah.
or the end of each arc, I should say. Basically, like where Eldest kind of memorializes whatever monster Hulk is just beaten down. Um, he talks about the cosmic horror he talks about Brother Urdu, Brother Deep, and where Brother Deep comes from and how it ties into Mother of Horror. So there's a little bit of the Mother of Horror's origin in that remembrance as well. It talks about a little bit about where she came from.
And like I said, I think it's a fabulous world you're creating for the Hulk. And right now, in issue 17, because issue 17 is the most recent one that's out there, Hulk's fighting the Eldest. It kind of feels like if this was the world of a video game, we're closing out on the levels. We've gotten to Eldest. Eventually, I assume Mother Horrors is coming up soon. Um, will the horror feel the story that you have right now continue past this overarching story?
Oh yes. Yeah, I want the whole thing to be very consistent. Like it's going to be the status quo is about to change big time with Hulk and Eldest and Charlie. That's all about to change quite a lot. But the theme and vibe of the whole story will continue as it has.
So we're not going to lose Charlie.
I didn't say that. You are spoiler hungry, sir.
My apologies. But like I said, I enjoy it. The thing is, I think the Charlie, I think, adds a good element to the story, and I think she helps because obviously the issue always with the Hulk is that he's a kind of an independent character, though he's part Bruce as well. But Bruce and Hulk very rarely have pleasant conversations with one another that you can build upon. I think Charlie adds a good element to both characters to give them a chance, someone to build to play off of.
Mhm. Yeah, I Charlie's inclusion in the story was important because Hulk and Banner, I won't say never, but they're rarely in the same place at the same time.
Right.
Um, so I thought it was really important to have another character there that has a different relationship with one than they have with the other. Give us kind of a little hate triangle. Um, so we can see because Charlie has been, you know, abused her whole life, has been like just dreaming of getting away her whole life. She's always hated herself for being weak, like too weak to fight back against her dad. And when she sees, like, she grows up this Captain America super fan, because to her, Cap is the man. He's the strongest, fastest, prettiest. Like Cap's just the man. But then when the Avengers come to get her, it's not Cap that comes, it's the Hulk. And then she just becomes this Hulk super fan. She just like is all in on how strong he is, and just is so taken with his strength and how he just doesn't give a shit about anything. Like he's just like, I do what I want because I'm so strong. As to her, because of what she's come from, to her that is just intoxicating. And Banner, she's actually very much like Banner in a lot of ways, but she sees her own weakness reflected back at her through Banner. So to her, he's like this lame, puny nerd that she just despises. Not despises, but looks down on. She has this disdain for Banner because he's weak and afraid, the way that she is weak and afraid. So yeah, that relationship, how they all feel about each other, makes it much more dynamic, in my opinion, than it would have been if it was Hulk alone.
And for this Hulk run, and I mean, this is going back to previous run, and also obviously with Al Ewing's run, is that the relationship between Banner and Bruce feels like it's reaching ever increasing heights of animosity towards each other. It gets worse and worse and worse. In 17,
Yeah, it's not going to get any better after issue 17 either.
right, I'm gonna say because Bruce basically surrenders Hulk to the Eldest for the sake of Charlie.
Hmm.
I assume the Hulk knows that this is how it went down.
Yeah.
Can you, is there any going back for Bruce and Hulk from what just happened with what Bruce did?
Is there any going back? Well, not in the near future. I mean, Hulk's good and pissed right now. Um, so we'll see how things go. It's gonna get worse before it gets better, I'll say that. And the thing about monthly comics is that it goes on forever, right? So I'm not gonna say they'll never be chummy again, but certainly not today or tomorrow. Like Hulk has been deeply betrayed by Banner, and things were not going great even before that. But now Banner has made a true enemy out of Hulk with what he's just done.
When,
Enough that I mean Hulk would throw himself on a fire just to hurt Banner.
when you think about the Hulk and Bruce in the relationship, I mean, obviously there's some issues with that are unavoidable, but do you think this might be this is definitely hypothetical because obviously the stories went the way they went. Was there ever, you think, a moment where the path could have gone differently and they could have been not maybe not allies, but had a relationship that actually is functional versus where they are now?
Oh yeah, it could have gone very differently. Um, hmm. I mean, there's just been so much history between those characters. I mean, how many times has Banner tried to, quote unquote, cure himself,
Mm.
which to Hulk means death. I mean, if Hulk is his own personality, separate and independent from Banner, Banner being cured just means that Hulk doesn't exist anymore. I mean, that's it's an act of war, in their relationship, and he's done it over and over again. Um, and Banner has also relied on Hulk to get him out of problems over and over again for years and years. Um, I don't know. I'm trying. I did kind of. I'm trying to tell a very different story though with Hulk and Banner than the ones I remember. Back in the day, Hulk is kind of the uncooperative savior, where you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. Like he's kind of like the expression of Banner's rage. When he gets angry, the Hulk emerges and becomes this rage monster. That's not the case now. Like Banner does not feel the need, excuse me, Hulk does not feel the need to punish Banner's enemies now. Hulk is out to punish Banner for what Banner has done most recently, where he just totally enslaved him and, weaponized that rage meter thing as a way to, it was, just, it's hard to look past. So to me, that gave us an opportunity to tell a different kind of story. So now it's less a metaphor of anger issues, more of a metaphor of addiction, where or substance abuse, I should say, like where you don't have complete control over yourself. Um, all of us, in my opinion, the thing that kind of got my hook, my way into the Hulk character was the knowledge that all of us, in my opinion, have something about ourselves that we hate or are afraid of. Something that we like, I would be so squared away and so successful if only XYZ. If only I could get up in the morning. If only I could stop gambling. If only I could stop drinking. If only I wasn't so fucking fat. If only I was whatever the thing is. Um, Whatever the thing is that you don't have control over. Like that failure to master oneself.
Mm.
We all have that. And so anytime Banner gets too close to something that he wants, that he's working towards, or he, has a moment's peace or makes a friend or somebody's nice to him or whatever, like he's close to something that he desires, he blacks out and he wakes up, or he sees like green eyes in the shadows and he starts to run, but it's too slow and he blacks out and he wakes up and he's in a puddle of green vomit and there's a half-eaten deer and sirens are going and shit's blowing up and, people are dead and he just has to run again. Like Banner's fears of himself are manifest in Hulk. Hulk is that thing about himself that he can't control,
Mm.
that that keeps him weak and poor and scared. So
What
yeah, it's a different kind of horror story. I wanted Hulk to be the monster of the movie, the way it is in movies like The Ring or It Follows or Smile, that kind of thing.
so get an idea that the Hulk is those aspects of the Banner that he's afraid of or doesn't like about himself. Hulk being his own personality, though, who is Banner then to the Hulk? Is he just a weakness? Is he just an enemy completely? Is there anything about the Hulk where he can see either a value in Banner or something about himself that he sees in Banner that he doesn't like?
He's the thing that needs. So Banner has needed Hulk, all this time, has relied on Hulk in a way, but also hates him and also is afraid of him. And Hulk sees all that. Hulk sees like there's nothing. Hulk doesn't need Banner at all. Or at least that's how he views it. So as far as Hulk's concerned, Banner's just this pathetic thing that stuck to him that he just wants rid of. And now he's not just like a hassle. Now he's like actually his enemy because of what he's done. Like his Banner actually cracked the code and made like enslaved Hulk the way that they did in the Cates run. Now like Hulk has been deeply trespassed upon. So now he's legit, not just annoyed with Banner, but like angry, you know. And now after this betrayal that we see in issue 17, that's like doubly so.
Is the Hulk correct in that he doesn't need Banner?
No,
Okay.
but that's well, we'll see that expressed in the book. But Hulk does not always have all the answers. Like Hulk just wants to be left alone. There's I know I'm talking about the movies a lot. There's a moment from the Ed Norton movie that stuck with me. Like when the authorities have the feds have found him and they go in at the bottling plant in Brazil and they're trying to capture him. Um he's transformed in the shadows, and he grabs a Fed or somebody pulls him into the shadows and throws him wherever. And there's this rumbling. When I first saw the film, I didn't actually realize it was dialogue. I thought it was just a noise. But he says, "Leave me alone." And man, that was badass. And to me, that kind of sums up the Hulk. Like he's just, I didn't come after you. You came in here. Just walk away and I won't kill you. He just wants to be left alone. So there's that disdain and just dismissiveness in what the Hulk is. He's not really a hero. He is a monster. He's not an evil, malicious monster that's looking to kill people. He just wants to be left alone. He doesn't want to be bothered. Like there's a thing at the end of Blood Hunt, the Blood Hunt tie-in that we did at the end where he's been fighting these it's a vampire event, so it's the vampire tie-in. At the end, he's got this vampire thing staked to a wall. Spoilers. Um, she's like the vampire mother to this other character, and she says something like, "I just wanted my baby to have a better life. Did it work? Did he have a better life?" And he says, "How should I know?" He kills her. That kind of that kind of sums up. That's another example of like what Hulk is right now. Like he's a monster. He did not go looking for things to break. People keep going after him, you know.
And I think that's kind of interesting because once you're talking about the eldest, um, unlike Captain America and Spider-Man, who's like, "Hey, look, a bank robber, let me go fly in and stop him." Hulk is like, "I'm gonna do my thing. Why are you in my face?" So the eldest and Mother of Horrors have made a deal, have made it a thing on theirs to get the hold of the Hulk. Um, the reason why they're going to be endangered by the Hulk is that they kind of did it to themselves. They went looking for him, and now they got him. Um, better off were they if they just left him the hell alone and worried about their own thing.
Yeah, if they left him alone, none of this would have happened. I I mean Hulk. I know there are some people that are going to take offense to the idea that Hulk's not a hero. He does heroic things. He's just kind of annoyed about it as he does. It's like there was a moment in issue two, two or three maybe three, where he's saved this girl. This girl's about to fall into this coal mine that's collapsing. He pops her down. He's like bleh, and he just like kind of walks away, and she wants to go with him. And he's like, "No, leave me alone." And as they're talking, at some point the place is still collapsing and she ends up falling. And he's like, yeah, and he dives in and he catches her and he uses himself as a human shield and saves her life. But the whole time down, he's like, stupid. Like stupid kid fell in a stupid hole. And now I'm stuck down here and it's just annoying. It's not that he doesn't do heroic things. He's not Superman.
Right.
He's not looking to save the day. He just wants to be left alone. And when stuff happens, he does begrudgingly help. So I don't know, it's fun. I also the thing that kind of helps that setup is that he is because of the events of issue one, Hulk has kind of become this lightning rod for monsters to find.
Mm.
He's like this magically charged thing where all these other monsters that we've never seen before are just somehow they just find each other. And so he keeps having these adventures without wanting any of that. Like it's just a way to make this character that just wants to be left alone kind of the center of attention for this whole unseen world.
I really do like the idea because when you deal with the Hulk and how once again, angry, he doesn't be bothered. I think a lot of us feel that way, but the fact that I think the Hulk does have that moral center, it's like, fuck. So I gotta do the right thing. I gotta, it says something about it. So under all that anger and the I don't be bothered, there is that kernel of deep morality that he wants to do what's right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like it's just a really endearing trait to the character that he's not like scanning the landscape for rights to wrong or anything. The stuff just tends to find him. There's another line where it says, monsters tend to find each other, and that's the
Hmm.
situation. That's not how he wants it. That's just kind of how it is.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'm really excited for you to see what's coming
Like I said,
because
I really
cool stuff.
love the Hawk run, and like I said, I don't buy the Hawk ever before, but I just find it. I mean, I never thought the Hawk made sense in the world of horror. Like I never would have thought about it, but then that you
Yeah,
see it, you're like, well, that makes sense. Why wasn't that assumed all along? I think you never like viewed him as a horror character. You like Ghost Rider horror. Some of these other characters horror. I don't think I ever thought about that way about the Hulk until I read your series. I was like, yeah, that does make sense. He's a monster. He would be in a world of horror.
Yeah, thanks. That's how I view it. I mean, and that's kind of what Stan Lee even said when he talked about how he came up with the idea and how the character kind of came together in the old days with him and Jack. Um, he wanted the character that was kind of he credits things like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and Frankenstein as being the inspirations for what Hulk is. And even in the old days, he would come out at night. It wasn't this thing where he would come out when he got angry. Like when night fell is when the Hulk would emerge. Um, so yeah, there was just he was very clearly a horror trope. And then as years went on, it became the Marvel universe continues to congeal and you know uh yeah, he would find his way into superhero stories. Like now he's in the Avengers, now he's fighting so and so. So it wasn't purely a horror story usually, but that was the vision initially, which is
Hmm.
why I thought the immortal take was so brilliant because that was the original thing anyway. It was meant to be that way. But I even if that were not the case, sometimes I do think about various. I just like horror stories, man. I like horror movies. And sometimes I'll think about various characters and properties that would lend themselves very well to a scary book. And Hulk is just too easy for that kind of thing.
Well, speaking of the scary books, like I said, we did the Hulk, and hopefully, we can have more stories eventually with John Stewart, but which we'll get to some other time. Hopefully, to have more discussion of Hellhunters, which is a
Yeah.
cool new miniseries that I saw and I thought that just looks freaking awesome.
Thanks.
And for those who don't know, it's a story starring the 1944 version of Ghost Rider that we saw in the Your Hawk run, which
Right.
was a fucking badass character. Um,
Thanks.
Now, how did this come about? This miniseries? Did you go to them, Marvel? Did Marvel come to you and say, "Hey, do you have any miniseries ideas you want to pitch us?" How did this work out?
Man, Ghost Rider 44. So have you heard the story that Guggenheim did the whole Arrow show as a way to eventually make a Flash show? Have you heard
No, I
that?
didn't actually know that.
Yeah, apparently, not that he ever didn't want to make an Arrow show, obviously, but he wanted to make this like comic book universe, and Flash was really the piece he wanted most. Um, and I that's not quite the case here. It's not like I didn't write Hulk so that I could write Ghost Rider. That's not the case. But they did talk to me about writing a Ghost Rider thing a long time ago, and I was hideously underwater at the time. I didn't have time to do it. But I said, you know what? I've kind of had this idea floating around the back of my mind. I kind of have this Nazi hang up. I got to think about Nazis. I fucking hate Nazis. And I hate that they're a thing again. And, it's like they're just like the perfect villain. Like in real life, you can just mow them down and not feel bad.
Yeah.
I was like, if you let me do a World War II, like Nazi kill fantasy kind of thing with like a Steve McQueen on a motorcycle kind of take on Ghost Rider, I'll do it. And they were like, I'll drop another book if I need to. I'll make it work. And they were like, we really want it to be Johnny Blaze. I'm like, I'm busy. I'm sorry. I can't do it. But that idea kept kind of coming to life in my head though. And when it came to me later for Hulk, and I figured out I was going to use it as kind of almost like a Marvel team up kind of setup where we were seeing cameos from other characters, either other monsters to fight or other monsters to team up with. I was like, oh, this might be my chance to do that Ghost Rider thing because it was in my mind. I was kind of seeing this character's origin, like how he came to be, and it was like kind of like a team book. It was like an Inglorious Bastards kind of setup,
Hmm.
and we could see all of the biggest badasses of World War II from Marvel canon, like Nick Fury and Wolverine and Bucky and Peggy and all these awesome characters. So I kind of started figuring that out, and I brought out when I introduced Ghost Rider in the pages of Hulk, it was with the intent to be able to come back and do that origin story and
Hmm.
do like the spin-off series, which is what we're doing now. And I even I like soft pitched it on a panel with CB Cebulski one time. I was in a panel, I think it was New York Comic Con, and somebody asked a question in the audience. It was such a softball, it was perfect. Somebody was like, what's a book you'd like to do that you haven't done yet or something? I was like, I'll tell you what I want to do. And I told them about the Marvels and Glorious Bastards thing, and the whole audience was like, all in on that idea. And CB was like, approved. And he was just screwing around on the panel, but he said it.
Yeah.
And I happen to have some concept art on my phone that I had a friend of mine, Jonas Scharf, draw up already. I'm like, check this out. And so I just kind of put it all together like a chess game over the course of 3 or 4 years. Um,
Awesome. That's awesome.
yeah, thanks. I don't usually pitch books. Usually they're like, "Hey, do you want to do this thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe." But this time I was like, "This is a book I want to do that does not exist yet." It's not a case of me like jumping onto a book that they've already decided they're going to do with or without me. This is a book that I wanted to do real bad.
Now,
So I'm really glad they let me do it.
now, when you think about, as you mentioned, the Nazis, um, connect to the Hulk, the idea of monsters. The Nazis are very easy to make people monsters, right?
Mhm.
And you have Ghost Rider. When you have Ghost Rider, you also have issues, characters of hell. Obviously, Ghost Rider is going to do something beyond just Nazis, and hellish creatures. Um, how are you connecting the idea of monsters to not only the Nazis, but now the hell? And is it really that hard of a stretch to make that from Nazis to hellish beings?
Well, this so Hellhunters is not quite a monster book in the same way that the Hulk book is. It's a story about fighting super. It's just a Nazi kill fantasy book, like I said, but it's because it's comics and because of the nature of the team that we're following, it made sense for there to be some like demonic elements to it. So rather than just shooting straight up Nazis, there's a very Hellboy kind of feel to the whole book. I wanted it to be, if you read that first, what's it called? Not the Right Hand of Doom, but what was it? Wake the Devil? Sorry, what's that first one?
Was it Conqueror Worm?
Um, Sorry, hold on a second. I'm trying to remember that first Hellboy arc that shows like
I did. The ones I remember are Wake the Devil, Conqueror Worm, and
Seed of Destruction.
Seed
Seed
of
of
Destruction.
Destruction, and,
Gotcha.
and then Wake the Devil comes after that. Anyway, I'm gonna get this out. I'm gonna read this later. Um, I love Mignola's stuff, man. Like the
Oh
whole
yeah,
BPRD thing is pretty great.
that's what Doom
Anyway,
is. Eventually.
the stuff where you see his origin, like Rasputin is there and he does this big. You've got like the evil skull face Nazi, and they call down something from hell and all that. It's got very much that kind of feel. So, and I mean, I said that it's not a monster story the way that Hulk is, but honestly, both of those books are inspired by Mignola in different ways. Both of them they have a lot of Hellboy in them. My whole Hulk run. If I had to pick one influence aside from Immortal Hulk, which is of course the canon itself kind of connects, I would say Hellboy, The Crooked Man
Mm.
by Mignola, but illustrated by Richard Corbin. That book just looks like the South in that super Corbin-y kind of way. God, I love that book. And I just love the idea of Hulk just kind of walking across the American South and giving us all these opportunities for cool Southern Gothic shit.
Mm.
Um, so anyway, and this was Hellhunters is in part inspired by just the vibe of that World War II / Eldritch horror kind of thing.
Mm.
So they are fighting Nazis, and the iconography is very Nazi-ish, but it's also something much bigger than that. Like it's this team of Marvel hero badass characters from World War II fighting this much larger threat that threatens not just to win the war, but threatens to, take Earth in a much meaningful way. Um, so anyway, I'm really excited about it, man. Like it's so fun to write those characters in that kind of old-fashioned, almost dated kind of way. Have them talking the way they did in those old World War II action movies, kind of.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing time to get to write dialogue of those characters. I get to show Logan back in the day. I get to show Peggy being like a badass, not being a love interest, but being just like awesome. I get to show Bucky being like an immature kid, but also a complete psycho. Bucky is like the scariest one of all of them because he's so messed up. He shouldn't be there. He's like 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is like the Ed Brubaker, the future Winter Soldier version of Bucky, where he's got the old classic like Bucky costume, grinning on the posters, trying to sell war bonds. But then when the camera's off, when the film reel's not running, he's a total psycho. And he's bloodthirsty, and he collects ears from Nazis he's killed, and he cries when he can't keep them, and he tries to bum cigarettes off of guys. And the only songs he knows are um like cadence calls that they run to and that kind of stuff. Like he's just such a busted kid. It's just a pleasure to write him.
Mm. You know, comic I used to I actually really enjoyed you know I had to buy them you know from comic book stores. I was not born when they came out. They were Sergeant Rock comic books. I actually do like when I can find a back issue of Sergeant Rock, I always pick them up and I'll read them. Those are some fascinating comic books, and is it? I think it give you a great sense of that feel of I can't remember who the artist was. It was a very famous artist. Which one that was?
Joe Kubert did a lot of those.
Joe Kubert. And they were brilliant comic books. And not only that, but visually they were stunning comic books.
Yeah, I've got those old collections. Like
Yeah.
I don't have the single issues or anything, but I have collections of them. Joe Kubert, man, I whenever I see like a celebrity someplace, you go to conventions, you see famous people from shows or movies or famous comic creators as well. I usually I make a point not to like bother them because I'm sure they get mobbed all the time. So I'll just bump into them and I try to just make a point, just be nice and polite, but don't be weird or make them
Yeah.
don't demand their attention. I really wish I had met Joe Kubert.
Mm.
Like I would have bothered Joe Kubert a little bit. Like the guy is legit like one of my heroes. I just admire him so much, his work, but also him as a man.
Mm.
So I just admired the hell out of that guy. I really wish I'd met Joe before he passed.
That would have been a great autograph. And like I said, I wish I had been around when I could monthly buy um, um, Sergeant Rock instead of having to find the occasional back issue and try to pay. And they're always in crap condition. That's what I can afford. But so there's something nice about buying those. But going back
Yeah,
to your,
I think I got one of those over here too.
oh wow,
He did the collections I have downstairs. Here we go. He did one much more recently, um, called The Prophecy. And he did that. He was old as hell when he did this. And it looks great. I mean, I just can't believe how well he was drawing, like right up until the end.
yeah,
I mean, it still looks, I mean, it still looks like Hubert's work.
oh
Just great
wow.
stuff.
It's just it's there's he did such a great job. It was visually it's just stunning. I mean, you can talk about artists nowadays, but there's something stunning about the old Sergeant Rock comics.
Yeah,
Oh wow,
just beautiful work. Let me see what year this was. 2007.
really? For some reason,
Yeah.
I didn't know he was. Sounds wrong. I didn't know. For some reason, I felt like he had been gone longer than that.
No, he was, well, while we're talking here, I'll find out when he died.
Okay.
His sons still run the school, still run the Kubert school.
Mm.
Let's see, Joe Kubert.
I think what people it's kind of fascinating too about Sergeant Rock is that for a book about war, it was definitely an anti-war book. It was an extremely anti-war book, but when you look at the covers, you look at what people just thought of it, you're like, well, it's a war story. It's like, yeah, it's an anti-war story. And it's the
Yeah.
reason why it came out through the time of Vietnam.
Yeah, it was sad. Like it could be, there were real tragic moments.
Right.
Yeah, so he was born in 1926, and died in 2012.
That's a nice long life.
Yeah, so when he drew this book, he was fucking 80,
Jesus Christ.
and it looked awesome. You
Right.
know, so impressive.
So one more time for the reader, what's the name of that one?
It's called Sergeant Rock, The Prophecy.
Is
And
it a graphic novel or is it collected?
it's a collection. I don't know if it came out in singles or not. I first saw it like this. I bought it sight unseen.
Oh wow. That's very cool. Well, like I said,
Yeah.
now you gave us a treasure hunt for our listeners to jump in, and for those listening, if you do want a great comic book, check out the Sergeant Rock stories from the 70s and 80s. But going back
Yeah.
to Hellhunters, so your the parent character is Sergeant Sal Romero, and I will say once again, I'm not well versed in Ghost Rider over the years. However, my Johnny Blaze, the idea that he sold his soul to Mephisto for some purpose. That's why he became Ghost Rider. So Sergeant Sal Romero had to have done the same thing. Um,
Not exactly.
not exactly. Okay. Can
This setup is more like The Crow,
okay.
where you're gonna see Sal tragically murdered. I mean, it's war, so I guess the term murder is a little rough, but he's I mean, that's what happens. He gets killed by a squad of supernatural Nazis, and then we see what happens next. He gets a chance to become the spirit of vengeance. So yeah, it's the story's a little different than Johnny Blaze setup. It's not, he doesn't exactly, I mean, he does have to make a deal, but when he's making the deal, he's making it as a dead man, rather than the usual setup.
So obviously, when you talk about he's a soldier, American soldier. He's an American soldier. Um, what is suggest that he is willing to make a deal with the devil? Is there? 'Cause obviously, the idea was for Johnny Blaze, he did it for a higher purpose. He did it, I believe, to save his girlfriend, if memory serves.
I
Um,
want to say originally, I think it was to save his, it was like his uncle or something.
oh, was it
Like
uncle
it was
originally?
to save somebody else. Like it might have been later on. I think there was a woman involved, but anyway, I need to go back and read it. But I think it was to save someone else he was very close to, a guy.
So, what would possess Romero to sell his soul to a devil while fighting for against the Nazis?
Got to read the book, bro. I've already said too much.
Does he know that's what he's
No, but it's um yeah, I mean hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't answer that without spoiling the book. I want you to
sorry.
see what happens. Like there are motivations. I want you to see.
Okay. Now the guy that he's fighting is, if I get the name correct, Felix Bruckner,
Yes.
who's a Nazi soldier. Um, what can you tell us about Felix Bruckner? It says that he's a soldier in the solicits. Is he like a high-ranking officer? Is he just a regular ground soldier? And how much? Uh,
He's a captain.
he's a captain.
Yeah, I'll spoil this because this happens on the first few pages, but he's a captain who was assigned to the Russian front. He's up fighting the Russians. He's fighting winter really, with his Nazi buddies up in Kaliningrad. And while he's up there, you know, Germans didn't do well in that part of the war.
Yeah.
And you see this little squad kind of on the run. And Bruckner has an opportunity to make a deal as well. And that's kind of where everything really kicks off. There's this amazing shot that the artist Adam Gorham draws. So Adam Gorham has drawn this book. Adam's been one of my favorite artists in Marvel or just in comics for a long time. He's got this beautiful style. And he and I've gotten kind of friendly, and I wanted to do a book with him. So we got to do this together. And I gave him this really creepy image to draw up in the Russian forest. And he just nails it. It's so cool looking and creepy and just a very memorable image. And yeah, Felix Bruckner is the one who makes the deal with the devil, really, and that's kind of what sets all the wheels in motion for the story. So the story becomes a kind of a showdown between this Nazi officer and this uh, American Army Airborne Infantry guy that have both become the vessel for these warring factions of Demon. So
Now when you think
I
about
mean, deep down, it's just about killing Nazis. But the theme, if there is a higher purpose to the book, it's about like being, the way soldiers are used by, greater powers.
now when you think about Felix Bruckner, once again a Nazi, is he not when you think about Germany of 19 of the World War II and my memories of how the history worked. Obviously, there's the hardcore party members of not the Nazism, and then there's the soldiers who fought for Germany because of Germany. Is Felix Bruckner a hardcore believer of the Nazis, or is he a soldier fighting for Germany?
Um, he's a Nazi. He's like a proper Nazi, but when the cards are down, he will protect his own ass at all costs. He is actually kind of a coward. He's not. He is a true believer in the Nazi cause, but it's because they're like the Nazis are the ones who are like winning right now. He's more of like the opportunist. Um, I think we can see that in any kind of political group. I think we have people in this country right now, even our elected officials, who are kind of following. They're kind of doing what they believe is best for their own career, not
Mm,
because they're following someone they believe in necessarily.
mm.
Just pretty, you know, frustrating and disappointing. But that's kind of what Bruckner is as well. Bruckner is that guy that just is very careful which way the wind is blowing, and he can see he calls himself a Nazi, but in the end, he'll do anything to save himself.
So, I know we're being a little careful of spoilers. For Felix Bruckner, when he does what he does, is it for Germany or is it for himself? And what's his overall plan or goal?
Um, It's a lot of spoilery questions, Jeff. I can't tell you that.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it's in the end, he's out for himself. But
Okay.
he's a Nazi. He will execute minorities. He will shoot innocent soldiers. He will shoot his own men if he has to. He will do whatever it takes to come out ahead. But yeah. So he's a Nazi for sure. But in the end, he's for himself, and he'll do whatever it takes to survive and to make it out.
So as you mentioned, some of the characters that he'll show up with Wolverine, Nick Fury, so that is it Peggy Carter, Captain America, Bucky. Um,
No Cap, not on
no,
this
no
team.
Cap. Okay.
No, Cap's not on the team. Like this team is pretty hardcore. Like this team is more shadowy and bloodthirsty than Cap would be okay with. Like these is kind of like this is like the Black Ops team, like World War II. This is kind of like X-Force to the Avengers, X-Men, Like it's something that you or even the Defenders. Like we've seen other war books, like other World War II stuff. The Hellhunters are like a more hardcore team than we've seen. Like these are the ones that don't mind getting blood up to their elbows.
Well, as you mentioned, they're the characters of the invaders back in the 40s. You have the Human Torch android and Submariner
Uh-huh.
that were coming out from the 40s. Are they making appearances or not? Okay,
Jeff,
spoilers.
I
All
can't tell
right.
you.
No worries, no worries. Um, because they have experience with with a Ghost Rider, does that change how the present comic books worked out? That the first exposure to Ghost Rider was actually from the 40s, not now, or is the Ghost Rider of the 40s different enough that they don't make the connection between what he was and what Johnny Blaze turns out to be?
Um, I mean, it's real similar. I think anyone who had worked with Sal Romero as Ghost Rider back in World War II would certainly recognize what Johnny Blaze is years later if they're still around. We're actually going to see some. I don't want to spoil in what way or in what series or anything, but assuming Hellhunters, assuming fans respond well to Hellhunters, we're going to see them appear in modern day as well.
So this could potentially move into an ongoing as well, or is locked in as a
I don't know. I think what I would love to do, if possible, kind of again, it all depends on reader response, but what I would love to do is to make this series almost like the way that Brubaker and Phillips have done some of their criminal books, where you see a mini series or just like a hardcover come out all at once. There's like a mini series or a graphic novel worth of story, like a film rather than a TV show that goes on forever.
yeah.
You just see like a movie comes out, and then the next year or 6 months later, 9 months later, whatever, then the sequel comes out, and then another one. I'd love to have like a series of Hellhunters stories that all kind of tie together, but do not just run on and on forever. I think that'll be a really fun way to tell stories, make each one like its own film.
Now, given the opportunity, now we're just hypothetical. If you were to bring the story Hell Hunters to the present, who would you love to write with to be part of that team?
Say it again. Sorry.
If you're writing Hell Hunters into the present, what would in your imagination, what would that team look like?
Well, this is all theoretical.
Yeah, of
So
course.
this is not spoiler because this is not happening to my knowledge yet.
Right.
But what I would love to do, it would be fun to show a team like, well, I mean, Bucky's got to be in there. So Winter Soldier, Ghost Rider 44, Sharon Carter. I mean, I'm pretty attached to the team that we have in World War II, so I try to stick close-ish to that. Logan, like those are the ones. Those are all the aside, replacing Peggy with Sharon. Aside from that, it's like a lot of the same characters. But another character that I would add to the team that would be fun. Um, hmm. I feel like Hulk would overshadow the team a little, but maybe like, I mean, Scar would be cool. But I really wanted to have that kind of like soldiery kind of feel.
Mm.
Like I don't know, the current like the present day Nick Fury is different than like classic Nick Fury. But man, somebody like that. Maybe Maria Hill could be really cool. I don't know. I have to think about it. I don't know.
Well,
Come
see,
back to me.
well, see, now you brought up Scar. I mean, what makes you wonder if Scar is ever going to show back up in the Incredible Hulk? Because
I don't know. Anything could happen.
So
No, Scar's cool. He doesn't really, but he doesn't have like a magic element exactly. He's not really a World War II character either. Um, I don't know. It would take some thought. Let me think about it some more.
okay. So for Hellhunters, when does the first issue come out, and what are some of the other things we can look forward to experiencing in the Hellhunter series?
First issue comes out in December. Um, you're gonna see, man, this is like my therapy, honestly. Like you've got Nazis in real life marching outside Disney World, dumb shit like that. So we're gonna light them up in the books.
That's awesome.
This is what I want. This is how I get through my day. Um, so yeah, man, this is a straight up just no holds barred World War II era action movie with Marvel characters going full bore. We're not gonna hold back on the violence. Like the way they talk is just so like old fashioned and fun, kind of charming in an old fashioned kind of cigar chompy kind of way. We're just gonna kill a shit ton of Nazis and not feel bad about it. I love it.
Awesome.
I love this book. I love it. I could write this forever. So I really hope everyone enjoys it. Adam Gorham is crushing the artwork.
Yeah,
I just couldn't be prouder to be on this book.
that's awesome. Mr. Johnson, it's been an absolute honor to speak with you as always, and please come back to the show anytime to talk about any number of stories you're working on. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Jeff.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Virgin Stars podcast. Please like and subscribe. Return for the next episode when Matt Rowan, Sarah Wiley, and Zen boards the mothership to discuss Mist, Address Unknown. To the next voyage, travel on.